Hello everyone and welcome back to another episode of Goddamn Gamecube. We are here in person at the Game Developers Conference 2025. We are backstage of the main stage. My name is Greg, I am your host today. We are here with the busiest man on the planet, composer Austin Wintory. He is a Grammy-nominated composer who has scored critically acclaimed titles such as Journey, Abzu, Assassin's Creed Syndicate, and more recently, Eternal Strands. Austin, thank you for joining me today. How you doing?
I'm doing great. This is the best possible time to be talking to me because we just finished a concert and it seemed to go well. You tell me. It seemed like the audience was into it. You never know.
I think so. I think with all the contrast and how you put it together, you got a lot. I think you got the audience going early, which is helpful.
That's the hope. Yeah, last year we did this concert for the first time, and it began with like a 5-minute medley of just rapid fire kind of tour of the history of games, the whole canon, and they were cheering for I tried to hit everyone's favorite, because it was like 30 games in the span of a few minutes. And it seemed to start the show really strongly. And I thought, well, I don't want to replicate the same formula every year. And so how the hell am I going to start it this time? And that's what led to the If X Made Y medley of wacky, Gustavo Santaolalla had scored Kirby and that sort of thing.
Right, starting off hot. Mm-hmm. So our time is limited, so we're going to do a condensed version of a typical Goddamn Gamecube talk.
We'll do part 2 another time, I promise.
I love that. So let's start very wholesome here. So did you ever think earlier in your career at USC that your Grammy nominations and your worldwide accolades would come from video games? Can you share your perspective on maybe your career thus far in that regard?
Well, the premise of the way you phrased the question makes it sound like I regarded success of any kind to be inevitable.
Good.
And no, I didn't feel that way though. That's the thing. Your premise has a flaw in it, but it. I mean, look, I've loved games my whole life. I wanted to be a game developer when I was in high school. I was kind of torn between music and development because I started doing learning coding and different computer languages and things, with the idea being that I could enter the industry as a kind of a computer science major. And then I just realized I really loved the music the most. But at the time, music and games was mostly written by staff composers working in-house. But I also really wanted to do movies and I wanted to do theater and stuff. So I thought, well, I have to be freelance. And I'm better suited to freelance. I have problems with authority.
Sure.
And so I was like, I don't know that I would be a good 9-to-5 employee, but I love collaborating with people. And so I just kind of assumed games were not on the menu because that's not how games were being scored. Uematsu and Koji Kondo were staff employees, and then you had in the West, one of my heroes, Peter McConnell, working with Michael Land and Clint Bajakian at LucasArts, and then, but by dumb luck, right around the time I was finishing college, the industry kind of went through a change, and freelance composers became the norm. And so my love of games just kind of led me into those arms organically. But you never know. You can score 100 games and all of them could be flops,
Sure.
So I'm really, really, really lucky.
Now, I mean this next question in a funny way. Only recently have games become the cultural norm of art conversation. Did you ever have to convince your friends and family that video game composing was a serious thing? Did they always take you seriously, or did it take some convincing? Or maybe the Journey Grammy nom spoke for itself?
Well, my friends, certainly. We were all gamers,
Sure.
like GoldenEye 64 or couch rage parties were, a staple of the 90s. So my friends needed no persuasion. And honestly, my parents were always really supportive. Their attitude was, just give it your all. We don't care what you do, but just don't go halfway.
Sure.
And they were, really, really supportive. And honestly, the only time I ever remember having anything remotely like skepticism was I remember when I first started piano lessons. I remember playing the theme to Monkey Island for my piano teacher and being like, how amazing is this? And he couldn't, because it's like these old, 1990 sounds, mm-hmm. right? And to him, it felt like something that would come out of a pinball machine. And so he which of course can also be great art, ironically, but you know what I mean? He kind of consigned it to a child's toy kind of sound. But he wasn't rude about it. I could just tell he was kind of like, okay, yeah,
sure.
That's okay. And it didn't move him,
Sure.
But honestly, I can't think of any other time that there was anything remotely disconnected. People, I don't know. I was just very lucky, I guess, to have people around me who didn't think I was nuts.
Yeah,
or at least not for that reason.
People bought in early, believed in you, and it gives you the confidence, and you get to go from there.
I suppose so. The funny thing is, it makes me wonder what my life would have been like if I had been told no, because I've always been one of those people that I actually kind of like when someone says no, and I like, I want to, it fires me up. So in a way, maybe all that encouragement held me back.
That's funny. So, according to your social media, you have been attending GDC for nearly 20 years.
I think I've only missed it twice since 2006.
Got it. So, what is it like for you emotionally to go from attending GDC as perhaps a college kid to being the main music event? Like, that in itself is very inspiring, and it is a feel-good story. What does it feel like being up there?
GDC has always been such a welcoming place. I really don't feel like, I don't actually feel on the stage that I'm in some elevated position. It's more like, I'm just here to entertain my friends and these colleagues and celebrate what they did. I said things along those lines from the podium, and I really mean that. Like, I don't feel like I'm descended from anywhere to do this. This is me having fun. And I mean, I got meetings with folks and, hustling up work like everybody else. And then I'm giving my talk on Friday like anybody else. Like, I don't feel that different than when I started coming here. Obviously, to the point that I made from the stage, it was very intimidating those first few years. Yeah. It always felt like no matter where you were supposed to be somewhere else.
Sure.
And I don't feel that way anymore. Now I just glide through and I enjoy wherever I am. But otherwise, I think part of what I love about it is it doesn't feel different.
Sure.
I'm sorry, it took me a while to work out how to best answer your question, but I think that's the long and short of it. Is
you do mean something to a lot of people, just so you know.
A lot of people mean a lot to me,
Yeah.
So I don't. Yeah, that's just the reciprocal nature of humanity, I think.
Let's talk about the concert itself. So, can you give us a quick synopsis of how a medley like this even comes together? Like, how involved are you in the curation and the scoring? Can you talk about your team? Do you maybe
absolutely.
tap the original composer for help?
Yeah, absolutely. So GDC gives me a completely, I am leashless. They basically just say, here are your parameters, here's the budget, which gives a sense of how many musicians you can hire, but it's not like anyone tells me how many strings I can have or anything. I just have a general sense of what they can afford and what they're comfortable spending. And then the approximately 1 hour time frame. And then other than that, they're like, have fun.
Just go crazy.
Yeah. And so, I don't seek approvals or anything from GDC. I curate the whole thing myself. I produce the whole thing myself. I have a team where we're all working on the arrangements. The arrangement, a lot of the heavy lifting was done by Brian LaGuardia, who also did last year, where I would send him, especially with the medleys, I would send him all these YouTube links that are time-stamped where I go, here's our orchestral instrumentation, and I want this piece, 17 seconds to 25 seconds of this specific thing, and I'm getting pretty particular about it, but also leaving space. And then I have two assistants, Dallas and Shireen, who both contributed as well this year and last year. Dallas did some great work. I was kind of running out of time. I was going to do it myself, but I was running out of time, and I was also working on other things unrelated to GDC. And Darren and I were talking about, I really want to do the stuff that we wrote together on Hades, but I also really want to do the song that he did that's just so cool called Coral Crown. And I said, we got to, convert it into orchestra. So I said to Dallas, Darren sent me over all of his stems of just the guitar parts and the synth parts and stuff. And I said, Dallas, just add orchestra. Just I said, honestly, just do what you got to do. And he sent me over a draft to give him notes. And I had almost no notes. I looked at it and I thought, Jesus, this is. And I said to Darren, I said, you got any thoughts on this? And he goes, I love it. And I was like, I think this one was a slam dunk. So
crushed it.
Yeah, and honestly, most of them were like that. Usually, no one ever did a bad job. Occasionally, I have a difference of opinion, and I would say, do you mind changing this to that way? And everybody's super collaborative. But yeah, no, and to your specific question about involving the composers whose music I'm playing, of course, yes. One of the very first things I did is email Will Roget. When the scope of the year he was having was being clear, I was just like, we're all guests in his universe at this point. So I messaged him. I said, I'd really like to make you kind of a crux of this show. I said, you cool to play with us, like on flute, and I really want to do 5 of your scores, 2 Mortal Kombat, Star Wars Outlaws, and of course Pacific Drive and Helldivers 2, and make a big thing of it, and very graciously, and sent over all of his, just to make our life a little faster, his scores and parts and stems, like when the Outlaws bit starts and you hear all those cool 808s doing the that's the actual one. That's like not us recreating it. That's the actual one in the game. So he sent his stems. Same thing, another one where I remember when I was doing the medley of music from around the world, I really wanted to do Thomas Was Alone of David Housden, and it has these very particular sounds in it that are kind of almost Game Boy-ish, and I was like, if I can't get a hold of him and get those stems, I'm not going to include the piece because they're so iconic.
Yes, it really brought me back to like the start screen.
Oh, I love that game so much.
Took the next question out of my mouth, which we're gonna move on right into it. So last major question. Do you have any personal favorite moments from the set? And I have a note in here that the Thomas Was Alone bit gave me a little tear in the eye because I heard the iconic synth sounds. I'm like,
and then it's so
thoughtful.
Beautiful too.
Yes.
It's like so emotional. I mean, look, the thing I was most excited to do, I think it came off how I hoped it would, is to have Will Roget come out and give us this like really atmospheric meditative flute that then gets interrupted by the most fucking badass theme ever.
Yeah.
And I was like, I just had this fantasy of picturing the whiplash of that. And it's so great that he's a flute player because it's just the most contrasting possible sound. And it was one of those images that occurred to me maybe 6 or 7 months ago. And I reached out to him and said, are you cool improvising a solo that I essentially interrupt with the Helldivers theme?
And it came across really well.
I hope it's like where people kind of like, okay, this is nice. This is actually very, very pretty. And then just that dun 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 dun, so iconic. I mean, to me, that's one of the. It instantly, much like with the Raphael's final act, I instantly said that will be a theme that lives as long as people care about video games. It just instantly became one of those.
Yep. So last tech question, then we're gonna get right to the end here. Is any of that set clicked out, or like are you guys?
It's all clicked out because of the prelays
and
the timing to the videos. Like because Dallas made all the video packages, and I said, I was very particular about the timing of when we fade up a thing, and I want to be able to have some stagecraft to that. Like we might shift gears musically a fraction of a second before the audience clocks it. That's all really important to me. It's the theater-ness, So so it had to be on clicks. Also, we had no percussion on stage, so all the percussion was coming through this house.
Tracks. Yep, that's awesome.
Exactly.
All right, lightning round. We're getting to the end.
Okay.
All right, what's a game you love? Perhaps something that's underrated, underappreciated.
I mean, look. Star Wars Outlaws got a lot of hate last year and didn't really perform, which means that a lot of people didn't play it. I think it's underrated. I quite liked it. I saw it through to the end, and I thought Will and John Everest and Kazuma, they all did a very great job with the score, and Cody on the source music, and I liked it. That's the first one that comes to mind. It's it sort of feels like a very kind of low-hanging fruit answer, but I got a million.
Lightning round. We're gonna keep rolling.
Okay, good. I love it.
So, what's a song or piece of music you did not write that you wish you wrote?
It's funny, I've never had that sentiment. When I'm a fan of a thing, I love being a fan of it.
This is more of a cutesy. Like, man, that song's so good, wish I wrote it.
Yeah, it's funny, I can genuinely say I've never thought that.
Interesting.
I've never found myself going, boy, I wish I could take credit. It's like, I go, man, I hope I can do something that good someday. That's how I tend to react. There's a million of those. The whole concert is that, basically.
Right. That's a good answer. Yeah, the whole concert. All right, what's one aspect of music that you're interested in learning or you want to improve about yourself?
Oh, I'm trying to always get better at everything. I'm always trying to improve my conducting. I'm always trying to improve, obviously, my writing. The last 5-6 years in particular, I've spent an enormous amount of time on production.
Sure.
Really, I mix most of the scores that I've written lately. I mixed entirely myself as well, and typically I've used a mixer, like someone who specializes in that. But I've just been getting so particular because I've been learning a lot of tricks and just going down the rabbit hole. So, but that's all part of everything. Some days I sit down and I just really think about counterpoint that day. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Because it's there's a great John Williams quote that I don't know if he's the original person who said this, but he loves saying this in interviews, and it's in the Disney Plus documentary where he goes, music is enough for a lifetime, but a lifetime is not enough for music. And that's how I feel about learning skills. Like, we will never have enough time to learn it all, or to learn even a fraction.
So we have come to the end here, and it is tradition on the show that the guest introduces the show. So if you don't mind,
I love
put the script in front of you.
This is composer Austin Wintory, and you were listening to Goddamn Gamecube.
Austin, thank you so much.
Oh, my pleasure, man. Thanks for bearing with me.
Thanks so much.
Of course.